Hi and welcome back everyone, my name is Poober, and this time we're doing something a little bit different with our Factorio gameplay. I just got done releasing my big Factorio Mega Base Tour, so if you haven't seen that you can go ahead and check it out in the upper right hand corner. But in the meantime, I'm thinking in this episode we will focus on reflecting about how the base turned out, things I would do differently, and what I think about it as a whole. So as I reflect on the base in today's episode, it will be more focused on talk and less of a main objective or big project. So if that doesn't interest you, I would recommend clicking away now because I definitely don't want to waste your time. In the meantime though, I have requested several more atomic bombs than I normally carry in my inventory. We now have 30 between the 10 here and the other 20 that I have in my pocket. So that will keep us busy for a little while as we're going to go ahead and take out a couple biter nests that we have over here encroaching on our perimeter wall, and then a couple of our mining bases that I don't want to have destroyed. But in the meantime, I think we'll start by talking about one of the main features about this base, which is what helps it to stand out from a lot of other bases you might have seen in the past, and that is the very obvious circular shape of our main bus. So to talk about the main bus really means we have to talk about how I came up with the design in the first place. Now, way back when I knew 0.15 would be dropping, I tried to think ahead of time of how I wanted our bus and our layout of the base to be designed. I wanted to do something really creative that I hadn't seen before, and that's when it occurred to me to consider whether we could even make a main bus into a circular shape to begin with. We now know, of course, that we can turn our bus into a circular shape, and it actually does a pretty good job of resembling a circle. It is symmetrical for the most part. I did follow a blueprint or kind of a guide for how to keep it in a circular shape, so I did have that already in mind, which helped to guide me for making this as circular as it turned out. So that did come in handy. But the circle itself did come with a lot of challenges and a lot of problems. To begin with, balancing the bus is difficult, especially when we have so many turns in our belts. It makes it so that I can't just randomly put an inserter anywhere if I have the intention to branch it off at a particular point. So the points where I had my junctions or my divisions of the bus was really tricky. I did work around that by balancing the bus to or from different areas than I would have liked, but it did turn out fairly well despite that. One of the other big challenges was actually getting as many belts as I wanted of each product to fit in the circle. So I know that the further out or the bigger our circle went, the less it would actually resemble a circle, and the more it would take on kind of an odd square shape. So I tried to keep the circle compact, but that meant I couldn't fit as many belts worth of iron or copper or steel, for instance, that I would have liked. So I did decide on doing just the 4 belts worth of the copper and the iron, although I would have liked to potentially have had more. So that was a limitation I did notice with this design. So another problem was where our belts were in the bus as well. So we have half of our iron and copper products, for instance, on one side, the other half on the other. And what that meant was that essentially this factory, for instance, would only be getting half of our iron or copper products because we would only be accessing it from one side of the bus, whereas we still have 4 belts worth of the products. We could only really balance 2 to go to the one side of the factory. So to get around that, I tried to do a little bit of belt rebalancing by divvying up the products where they could go. For instance, I ended up doing a trick here where if we had excess plastic on this line, I'd bring a belt's worth under here and rejoin it on the other side. And I did that a couple different times so that we have joinings of copper or iron to different sides of the bus. So that way if there was excess on one side, that the excess would go to the other. And that helped to balance it out a little bit, but still didn't solve the problem entirely. So talking about the base as a whole now, it ended up looking very much like I intended from pretty much the get-go. Linking over here to the left, you can see what my original base plans were, and it ended up taking that design for the most part. The big changes, though, were the fact that I included a couple extra factories for our science in these 1K per minute factories that I discussed in the base tour an episode ago, and then I added many more smelting factories in this section over here to the left and right than I had originally planned. But otherwise, it still takes on very much the same layout that I intended. In terms of some things I would probably change if I could do it all over again, and that's not to say that I haven't ripped up most of this factory and changed some things, but as a whole, there's not a whole lot I would change, to be honest. I really do like the general layout of everything, but it really was a challenge getting the products and the throughput to where I needed it to go. For instance, our factories over here have really lacked on our red and green circuits, for instance, but had we had a linear design, I think it would have been a lot easier to just bunch up our factories and get the products where they needed to go in a lot easier fashion than this layout allowed us to do. I think if I could change a couple things though, I would have made our main train design a little bit bigger so that the diameter of the diamond shape train system would be a little bit wider, so I wouldn't have to cram so much in here and worry about that. It would have been nice to add another smelter over here, but I couldn't fit it with the room that I had. And then also ideally I would have liked to fit our nuclear reactor into the apex of this section, but obviously that was too narrow and not nearly big enough. So I did have to resort to putting the nuclear sections down here. And these ended up being pretty massive, so it would have taken a lot more planning to know just how big I wanted these to be, but I didn't know it at the time. So all in all, it turned out, I think, as well as I could have made it with as much planning as I did from the get-go. So let's go ahead and take a couple of these guys out. I do our atomic bombs for the most part to take out the biters. I just have so much excess uranium-235 that I really do have to just kind of eat it up, or else I end up getting the problem that we had in the base tour where we have too much of the 235 and not enough 238. So we'll just take out a couple more here. A couple other things I probably would have changed was make a couple more of my factories more bot-based instead of belt-based. I did learn a lot from using bots more than I have in the past, just how beneficial they are to actually getting products to where they need to go. And this is the first time in my gameplay that I've actually used bot miners. And it really is so much more efficient to getting to and from the miners and into the boxes than just belt mining alone. Take that out there. One thing I would like to learn though that I haven't mastered yet is how to use power switches. So this was an attempt to try and make this a little bit smarter so that if we had more than so much stone requested in these boxes that the miners would turn off, and therefore I wouldn't get one of those alerts like you can see over here blinking. That's pretty annoying, so I would have liked to turn that off, but I don't quite have the understanding of how to do that at this time. So that is something that I would like to learn before doing my next base. With that said, I did learn a lot about trains and train signaling. We'll take this out here. Now with the addition of 0.15, they did make train and the signaling a little bit more intuitive, and they have a couple tutorials and stuff that you can use now and reference in-game, which is cool. I actually ended up doing most of my signaling and learning about the signaling just from trial and error. And it just ended up being that I noticed with the chain signals, for instance, that I would have a lot better success with our trains pathing, and I also ended up learning a couple tricks for our spacing. So this junction at the very beginning was a little bit smaller, but I ended up getting some train pathing problems where they would just get stuck. So this, with the width that it is, does allow full throughput of trains. But the signaling over here, where you see that we have just a ton of junctions, was a pain in the butt, but I was able to get it figured out without any train pathing errors or problems with that so far. I am really proud though of how I set up the signaling for our trains pathing into our smelters. And that was something I also learned from trial and error, and it really did take me literally hours and hours to figure it out, and so much testing and retesting and realizing mistakes were made and realizing that somehow this decider combinator wasn't getting the signals it needed. So it took a lot of effort just to get this to run properly. But after it's all said and done, it really does work very well. You can see these will only go to the train stations that need it, and it's just so cool to watch. This one will come in, of course, to the first train station here because it was turned on, but then if we had another iron train come in, it would be going to this one since that's the one that's open. So I'm really am proud of that. I just wish it wouldn't have taken me so long to learn it. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I just did that. Okay, so let's restart real quick. That is definitely not the first time I've done that. And at this point, I've spent so much time working on trains and the train signaling that I have been killed by trains just a couple times at this point now. There we go. I just want to kill enough that they are far enough away from our miners. So in terms of what's next, I do have a couple things in mind. I do know for sure I am going to have to take a break from putting out so many consistent Let's Play videos. I know it's kind of been slow coming out for the last couple months or so, but for a little while there I was putting out a couple a week, and then it did slow down as it took me longer to put out and create the videos, and the more advanced our technology went in the game. So a break will be first thing to come, but after that I do have some ideas in mind. I'm thinking even we might want to do another music video. So if you guys have any suggestions on songs that would go well for a type of music video, again, you can reference the first one I made, the Rasputin music video, which I think turned out really well. But I ended up picking out that song specifically because it ended up going really well with the rhythm of the game. So I don't have another song in mind quite yet that would fit the type of rhythm this game has. But if you guys have any suggestions, I would be glad to hear it. Another thing I was thinking is possibly doing another kind of Let's Play style series eventually. I don't know quite yet what the main goals of that series would be, because we've done the, beautiful creative thing the last 2 times now with our base tours, and doing something with the focus of it being attractive or aesthetically pleasing or OCD friendly will always be a priority to my gameplay. But in terms of whether I want it to be like a train type base or something a little bit harder in terms of like our biters or something, I haven't entirely thought out. And then I for sure don't have anything in mind yet for how I would design the base. So that would be something that I would be planning probably a lot in the future in the next couple of weeks about what I want to do next. If you guys also have some suggestions on some other types of games you'd like to see us play, I would definitely be open to that. This series ended up just being something that was requested because of my previous tour, and it ended up kind of turning into this Let's Play, which was really cool, but I had never done anything like this before. The channel in particular was never meant to be like a Factorio channel, and I still don't mean for it to be only Factorio. It just happens to be something that got the best response and something that I've been requested to play. But this channel was something that was started by my brother and myself almost a year ago now at this point. And we did name it Soelless Gaming for a couple different reasons. Firstly, it is a play on our names, and I won't go into specifically how it is a play on our names, but that is something that is specific to us on a personal level. Oh, and there is more research done. We're cranking away at these now pretty efficiently. It doesn't take long at all. And I think, we can take out this train station now. This has been an iron farm. I'll have to add in a couple more mining stations here. We're beginning to kind of run out of our easy spots for farming. We've got, these here, but it's steadily getting further and further out for our farming stations. This one will probably be a good one next. And then I'm probably going to have to add some more oil sections as well, just because it's a little slow between the only 3 oil farming stations that I have. Well, with that, we made it back to our main train area. we were able to take out the majority of our biter problems, so I think we're going to go ahead and end the episode there. I might do a little bit more off camera just to take out these biters that might be a problem in the near future. But otherwise, I appreciate you guys for sticking around through this rambling type video and hearing my thoughts and reflections about the base and the channel as a whole. Again, if you guys have any recommendations for what to do next in terms of Factorio or what to do in terms of the channel itself, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. But otherwise, I hope you'll stick around past my little break that I have planned, so I can't wait to see you for the next one, you guys.